The Great Hall of Concordia Prime Station floated in neutral space far from any sun or planet. Inside, representatives from 53 species sat in their designated areas. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had scales, others had feathers or skin or shells. The hall had been built to accommodate them all. It was a marvel of engineering and a symbol of galactic cooperation. Ambassador Yoon sat in the human section with his team. He was an old man now with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served the Galactic Assembly for 40 years. He had negotiated treaties, settled disputes, and always found ways for humanity to fit into the galactic community. Next to him sat Captain Dae-hyun, a former military officer who now handled security matters for the human delegation. On Yoon's other side was Dr. Hana, a brilliant scientist who advised on technical issues. The annual Concord Summit had been going on for 3 days. Most of it had been boring procedures and minor trade agreements. Yoon had listened patiently to every speech and every complaint. That was his job. That was what humans did in the assembly. They listened, they compromised, they made peace. The Velthara representative sat in the high chair at the center of the hall. The Velthara were insect-like creatures with multiple arms and compound eyes. They had held the chair position for 12 years. The current chair, whose name humans could not pronounce, tapped its speaking staff against the floor. The sound echoed through the hall. "We now address item 47 on the agenda," the Velthara announced. Its voice came through translators that hung in the air. The territorial dispute regarding the Talon Nebula. Yoon sat up straighter. This was not on the original agenda. He glanced at Dae-hyun, who was already checking his datapad. The captain's jaw tightened as he read. 7 human colonies existed in the Talon Nebula. They had been there for 60 years. 3 million humans called those worlds home. The colonies were productive and peaceful. They traded with everyone and caused no problems. A Wrath representative stood up. The Wrath were large reptilian beings with thick scales and sharp teeth. Magistrate Kix was known for his aggressive positions on territorial matters. The Wrath Collective brings forth ancient claims to the Talon Nebula systems, Kix said, his voice deep and rumbling. Our ancestors surveyed those systems 2,000 years ago. The records are clear. The territory belongs to the Wrath. Yoon stood slowly. The human colonies have occupied those systems for 6 decades. We found them empty. No structures, no claims, no markers. Under assembly law, uninhabited systems may be settled after proper surveying and registration. We followed all procedures. Ancient claims supersede settlement claims, Kix replied. This is established law. Only if the ancient claims were properly filed and maintained, Yoon countered. Were they? The Velthara chair consulted with its advisors. Several minutes passed. The other species watched with varying degrees of interest. Most seemed bored. Territorial disputes were common. The Wrath claims were filed in the old archive system. The chair finally announced. They are valid under subsection 41 of the Heritage Territories Act. Dae-hyun leaned close to Yoon. That law was passed 80 years ago. It's been used 6 times, always to favor founding assembly members over newer ones. Yoon knew this. He had studied every case. Each time the newer species had given up their claims. Each time they had been told it was for galactic harmony. We request time to review the Wrath documentation, Yoon said calmly. This is a matter affecting 3 million human citizens. The matter has been reviewed by the Assembly Legal Council, the chair said. They have found in favor of the Wrath Collective. We now move to vote on Resolution 47A. The human colonies in the Talon Nebula will be evacuated within 6 standard months. The territory will be transferred to the Wrath Collective. All settlers will receive standard relocation compensation. The hall erupted in side conversations. Yoon felt his chest tighten. They were calling a vote immediately. No debate, no negotiation, no time to prepare arguments. This is irregular procedure, Yoon protested. The human delegation requests a postponement to prepare our response. The matter is clear, the chair said. Postponement would only delay the inevitable. We vote now, Dr. Hana touched Yoon's arm. Her face was pale. They planned this, she whispered. They kept it off the agenda so we couldn't prepare. Dae-hyun said nothing, but his hands were clenched into fists. The vote was called. Species after species indicated their position. The display board showed the results in real time. Green for yes, red for no. The board filled with green lights. 48 green, only 5 red. Humans voted no. 3 other smaller species voted no, probably out of fear they would be next. 1 species abstained. The resolution passes, the chair announced. The human colonies will be evacuated. This is for the good of galactic stability and respect for ancient territorial rights. Yoon stood there in silence. 40 years of service, 40 years of compromise, 40 years of being the reasonable ones, the flexible ones, the ones who always found a way to make peace. And in 5 minutes the assembly had voted to displace 3 million humans from their homes. Captain Dae-hyun stood up. His chair scraped against the floor loudly. The sound cut through the hall's murmur. He looked at Ambassador Yoon. The old man nodded slowly. Dae-hyun's voice was cold and clear. He did not shout. He did not need to. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Assembly effective immediately. The hall went silent. 53 species, thousands of representatives. All stopped talking at once, Captain Dae-hyun. You do not have authority to... The chair began. I am the ranking military officer of the human delegation, Dae-hyun interrupted. Under human law in matters of existential threat to human populations, military command supersedes diplomatic authority. This vote represents such a threat. My decision is final and legal under human constitutional law. Ambassador Yoon concurs. All eyes turned to Yoon. The old man looked tired, but his voice was steady. I concur. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Assembly. Dr. Hana stood as well. Then the rest of the human delegation, 23 people in total, rose from their seats. They walked toward the exit. No one rushed. No one looked back. Their footsteps echoed in the silent hall. You cannot simply leave, the chair called after them. There are treaties, obligations, procedures for withdrawal. Ambassador Yoon stopped at the door. He turned back one last time. We have given the Assembly 120 years of service. We have compromised in every dispute. We have provided peacekeeping forces, humanitarian aid, and technical assistance. We have asked for little in return except fair treatment. Today you voted to exile 3 million of our people from their homes with 6 months' notice. You did not even grant us time to speak in their defense. We are done compromising. We are done serving an assembly that treats us as expendable. Then he walked out. The others followed. The great hall remained silent. The species looked at each other with confusion and uncertainty. Some seemed amused. Others looked concerned. Most simply seemed surprised. The Velthara chair tapped its staff. We will continue with the agenda. Item 48 concerns trade route regulations in the coreward sectors. But no one was really listening anymore. The galaxy had just watched humanity walk away. Most thought it was an emotional outburst. They assumed the humans would calm down and return within a few weeks, apologetic and ready to negotiate. They were very wrong. Outside the station, human ships began detaching from their docking ports. One by one, they fired their engines and jumped to hyperspace. Within an hour, every human vessel had left Concordia Prime. The silence they left behind would soon turn to something else entirely. 3 months had passed since the humans walked out of Concordia Prime. At first, the galaxy treated it like a joke. Political analysts on a dozen worlds predicted humanity would return within weeks, embarrassed and ready to apologize. They were wrong. The first sign that something had changed came from the trade stations. Human merchant ships stopped arriving at assembly ports. The ships that were already docked completed their business and left. They did not come back. At first, this seemed like a minor inconvenience. But human traders had connected hundreds of routes across the galaxy. They carried goods between species that did not trust each other. They provided fair prices and reliable service. Within a month, shipping costs increased by 15% across assembly space. Some routes stopped operating entirely. Lieutenant Minho stood on the bridge of the HSS Indomitable, watching the last human patrol ship leave the Outer Rim sector. He was young for his rank, only 28, but he had already served 5 years in deep space. His ship had been assigned to joint peacekeeping operations with the Assembly. Not anymore. All ships have cleared the sector, his sensor officer reported. Set course for home, Minho ordered. Maximum speed. The Indomitable jumped to hyperspace. Behind them, the Outer Rim lost its primary security force. The humans had been patrolling those sectors for decades, preventing piracy and settling disputes. Now they were gone. On Talon 7, one of the disputed colonies, Jiwon watched the evacuation ships descend from orbit. She was the elected leader of her settlement. a position she had held for 6 years. 3,000 people lived in her town. They had built it from nothing. Schools, hospitals, farms, factories, all of it would be left behind. The transports will take us to New Haven, she told the gathered crowd. The government has prepared housing and jobs. It will be difficult, but we will rebuild. An old farmer raised his hand. What about our homes? Our land? We take what we can carry, Jiwon said quietly. Everything else stays. But that was not entirely true. Over the next 2 weeks, human engineers systematically dismantled every structure on Talon 7 and the other 6 colonies. They removed power generators, water purification systems, communication arrays, everything of value. They even broke down the buildings, taking the processed materials with them. When the Wrath Collective arrived to claim their territory, they found nothing but bare rock and empty plains. Magistrate Kix stood on the surface of Talon 7, staring at the wasteland. Where is everything? He demanded. His aide checked the scanner readings. There are no structures, no technology, no infrastructure. They took it all. They cannot do this, Kix hissed. The settlements are part of the territory transfer. Apparently they can, the aide said. And they did. The Wrath had won the legal battle but gained 7 useless rocks. It would cost them billions to build new colonies from scratch. In the assembly chamber, emergency sessions were being called more frequently. Minor species that had relied on human protection started reporting problems. Pirates attacked trade convoys in the regions humans used to patrol. Border disputes that humans had mediated for years suddenly flared into violence. The krill were a peaceful species, mollusk-like beings who spent most of their time studying history. Their observer, an elderly scholar, published a report that spread across the assembly networks. In 5,000 years of recorded galactic history, the report stated, humanity is the first species to voluntarily leave a major galactic coalition without being expelled or destroyed. We have no historical precedent for what happens next. However, analysis shows that humans have been the primary peacekeeping force in the assembly for the past 80 years. They contributed 60% of military assets to joint operations, mediated 73% of disputes, and maintained security in 40% of assembly space. Their absence creates a power vacuum of unprecedented scale. The report was ignored by most assembly members. They believed new arrangements would fill the gap. They were wrong about that too. Deep in human space, Dr. Hana stood in a massive construction facility orbiting Earth. Before her, through the observation window, stretched the largest engineering project humanity had ever attempted. Dozens of ships worked on a structure that looked like a giant ring, 5 kilometers in diameter. Project Exodus is ahead of schedule, her assistant reported. The first gate will be operational in 4 months. And the others? Hana asked. 16 more gates are under construction at key locations. When the network is complete, we will have instant transport between all major human systems and our new partners. New partners meant the independent systems that had never joined the assembly, small civilizations that had been ignored or dismissed by the major powers. Humanity was building a trade network that bypassed assembly space entirely. Back in assembly space, problems were multiplying. The Velthera chair called a meeting with senior members only. 15 species sent representatives. The human withdrawal is causing more disruption than anticipated, the chair admitted. Trade revenue is down 22%. Security incidents have increased by 40%. We need to address this. They will come back, Magistrate Kix said confidently. They need the assembly more than we need them. A representative from the Gilnith, an amphibious species called Prextar, disagreed. My trade confederation has lost 30% of our shipping capacity. Human merchants are rerouting through independent systems. They are not coming back. They are building something new without us. Impossible, another representative said. What can they build in 3 months? We do not know, Prextar said. And that is what concerns me. We sent observation drones into human space. None returned. They are hiding something. The chair dismissed this as paranoia. We will send a diplomatic mission to Earth. We will negotiate their return with favorable terms. The mission was sent. It was refused permission to enter human space. The automated response was polite but firm. Humanity has withdrawn from the Galactic Assembly. We have no diplomatic relations at this time. Please do not send further missions. Ambassador Yoon received 12 private messages that month. Each one came from a different assembly species. Each one asked the same thing. Would humanity provide security for their borders? The assembly was failing to protect them, and they remembered that humans had always responded to calls for help. Yoon sent the same reply to each message. No. Captain Dae-hyun, now coordinating humanity's new defensive posture, met with representatives from 6 independent systems. These were small civilizations, most with only 2 or 3 colonized worlds. They had never been invited to join the assembly. We offer mutual defense and free trade, Dae-hyun explained. In return, we ask for basing rights and resource-sharing agreements. What if the assembly objects? One representative asked nervously. The assembly has no authority over independent systems, Dae-hyun said, and humanity will guarantee your security. We do not make that promise lightly. All 6 systems agreed. Within a week, human defense platforms were being installed in their territories. Within a month, trade between human and independent systems increased by 300%. The assembly passed a resolution declaring the human withdrawal a threat to galactic stability. The vote was unanimous among those present. Humanity was not there to vote or to care about the resolution. Admiral Suman received authorization to activate defensive protocols. Human systems went to heightened alert status. Automated defense stations came online at every major approach to human space. The message was clear. We will defend what is ours, but we will not be coming back. Lieutenant Minho's ship arrived at a human construction site in what had once been a demilitarized zone. Hundreds of vessels were building something massive. What is that? His navigator asked, staring at the screens. That, Minho said quietly, is a fortress. We are building a dozen of them along our borders. The galaxy wanted us gone. Now they will learn what a border actually means. On Earth, Ambassador Yoon sat in his office looking at reports from across human space. Productivity was up. Trade was thriving through new routes. The independent systems were proving to be reliable partners. And the colonies from the Talon Nebula were settling into their new homes, angry but united. He received a message from the assembly. They wanted to negotiate. They were offering a formal apology and a new vote on the Talon Nebula situation. Yoon deleted the message without responding. The galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Peace is easy to take for granted. Security is invisible until it is gone. And some decisions cannot be undone with apologies. The silence from humanity was becoming louder than any declaration of war. 8 months after humanity left the assembly, the galaxy began to truly understand what they had lost. The Hylian were a small species, barely 5 million individuals spread across 2 planets. They had joined the assembly 30 years ago, hoping for protection and prosperity. They got bureaucracy and empty promises instead. When their neighbors, the aggressive Wrath Collective, started making territorial claims on their outer colonies, the Helene appealed to the assembly for help. The assembly held debates. They formed committees. They drafted strongly worded statements. They did nothing that actually helped. The Wrath attacked on a Tuesday. Their warships destroyed 3 Helene orbital stations before the Helene could even call for help. By the end of the week, the Wrath controlled 2 Helene colonies and were demanding complete surrender. The assembly held an emergency session. Representative after representative stood up to condemn the Wrath aggression. They called it unacceptable, deplorable, a violation of galactic law. Then they voted on whether to send military forces to help the Helene. The vote failed. Nobody wanted to risk their own ships. Magistrate Kick sat in the Wrath delegation area looking smug. The Hylian territories have historical significance to the Wrath people, he said. We are simply reclaiming what is ours. It was the same argument the Wrath had used against humanity. But when they used it against humans, the assembly had voted yes. Now against the Helene, the assembly chose to do nothing. The Velthara chair tried to maintain order. We will impose economic sanctions on the Wrath Collective until they withdraw from Helene space. Sanctions. Not soldiers. Not ships. Just sanctions. The Helene representative, a small being with 6 limbs and soft gray fur, stood trembling. Please, our people are dying. We joined the assembly for protection. Where is that protection now? Nobody answered. Within 2 weeks, 3 more border conflicts erupted in different parts of assembly space. Species that had old grudges and territorial disputes suddenly felt bold. After all, if the Wrath could attack without consequences, why couldn't they? The assembly was paralyzed. Every species wanted others to risk their military forces. Nobody wanted to be the first to commit their own ships to combat. On Earth, Elder Wanshik addressed the human parliament. He was one of the isolationist council members who had argued for complete separation from galactic politics. We should not involve ourselves in assembly affairs, Wanshik said firmly. They made their choice when they voted against us. Let them face the consequences. Many agreed with him. Why should humanity help the same species that had forced them to abandon their colonies? But others disagreed. Councillor Tajin was a moderate voice. The Hylian voted against the Talon Nebula resolution, he pointed out. They tried to help us. Should we not help them? Helping one species means involving ourselves in their politics again, Wanshik countered. We left the assembly to be free of such entanglements. The debate continued for days. In the end, the isolationists won. Humanity would not intervene. Admiral Suman watched the reports from assembly space with a mixture of sadness and grim satisfaction. She had served in the Assembly's Joint Military Command for 15 years. She had seen how the politics worked. Every species wanted to be protected, but nobody wanted to pay the cost. How many human ships did the Assembly use for peacekeeping? Her aide asked. At our peak, we provided 63% of all peacekeeping vessels, Suman said. We rotated crews every 6 months, maintained stations across 40% of assembly space, and responded to security threats within hours. We did this for 80 years, and now they have nobody. The other species never built comparable forces because they relied on us. The aide looked at the reports. Trade disruption is getting worse. Pirates are operating in areas that were safe for decades. Because we made them safe, Suman said. We hunted the pirate bases, we patrolled the routes, we protected the weak. The assembly thought this happened naturally. They are learning it did not. In the assembly chamber, the Velthora chair called another emergency session. This was becoming a weekly occurrence. We must address the security crisis, the chair announced. I propose we form a new joint military force with equal contributions from all member species. The proposal failed immediately. The larger species did not want to share command. The smaller species could not afford to contribute ships. The medium-sized species wanted guarantees they would not bear the burden alone. After 6 hours of debate, they agreed to form a committee to study the proposal. The committee would report back in 3 months. Prextar of the Gilnith Trade Confederation had heard enough. He stood up, his amphibious body glistening under the chamber lights. We are discussing committees while species die, he said angrily. The humans protected us for 80 years and we took it for granted. We voted to take their colonies and now we wonder why they left. We are fools. The humans acted emotionally. Magistrate Kix responded. They abandoned their responsibilities because they could not accept one decision. One decision? Prextar's voice rose. We forced them to abandon 3 million citizens with 6 months' notice. We did not negotiate. We did not compromise. We simply voted and expected them to comply. And they did comply. They left peacefully. They did not attack us. They did not sabotage anything. They simply said they were done and they left. That is not emotional. That is rational. The chamber erupted in arguments. Half the species agreed with Prextar. The other half thought humanity had overreacted. Meanwhile, Dr. Hana was completing Project Exodus. The network of warp gates was nearly finished. She stood in the control center as the first gate activated, connecting Earth with a star system 300 light-years away instantly. Travel time through the gate is 7 seconds, her team reported. Energy consumption is within acceptable parameters. The network is stable, Hana smiled. Humanity had just changed the rules of space travel. The old hyperspace routes that connected assembly space took days or weeks to traverse. The human gates took seconds. Any independent system that joined the human network would have access to instant trade and communication. The assembly had warp gate technology too, but they had never built a network this large. It required too much cooperation between species that did not trust each other. Humanity built it in 8 months. 12 independent systems had already joined the human-led coalition. More were asking to join every week. Ambassador Yoon received a personal message from the Velthara chair. It was not a formal diplomatic communication. It was a private plea. Ambassador Yoon, we need your help, the message said. The assembly is fracturing. Species are fighting each other. Trade is collapsing. We made a mistake with the Talon Nebula vote. We admit this. Please let us talk. Let us find a solution. Yoon sat in his office reading the message 3 times. He thought about the 3 million people forced from their homes. He thought about 40 years of human compromise and service. He thought about the 5-minute vote that had treated human lives as bargaining chips. He drafted a response. It was short. The Galactic Assembly had 120 years to treat humanity with respect. You chose not to. You cannot undo that choice with an apology. Humanity is building a new future without you. We wish you well. He sent the message and archived the conversation. Captain Dae-hyun was negotiating with 2 more independent systems when he received intelligence reports from the border regions. The Wrath Collective was overextended. They had conquered Helene territory but now faced rebellions and resistance. They were requesting Assembly support to maintain order. The Assembly was debating whether to help the Wrath, sanction them, or ignore them. They had been debating for 3 weeks. This is why we left, Dae-hyun told his staff. They cannot make decisions. They cannot take action. They can only talk and debate and form committees. One of his officers asked, "Should we help the Helene? They are suffering." Dae-hyun thought about it. He wanted to help. Every human who had served in peacekeeping operations wanted to help. But Elder Wanshik was right about one thing. Getting involved would mean getting entangled in Assembly politics again. "We do nothing," Dae-hyun said. "But we watch. If the situation threatens independent systems or human space, we will act. Until then, the Assembly must solve their own problems." The galaxy was learning a hard truth. For 80 years, humanity had been the glue holding the Assembly together. They had been the peacekeepers, the mediators, the reliable force that everyone could count on. Now that glue was gone and everything was falling apart, the Assembly had thought they could continue without humanity. They were discovering how wrong they were, and the worst part was still to come. 14 months after humanity left the Assembly, something worse than internal conflict emerged from the depths of space. The Skretch had returned. The Skretch were not a civilized species by galactic standards. They did not negotiate or trade. They attacked, conquered, and consumed. Their ships were crude but numerous, their tactics brutal but effective. They had appeared at the edge of known space 80 years ago, attacking colony worlds and slaughtering populations. Back then, humanity had fought them for 6 years. It was a brutal war that cost hundreds of thousands of human lives. But humanity won, driving the Skretch back into the void beyond mapped space. After that, the Skretch disappeared. The galaxy assumed they were gone forever. They were wrong. The first attack came at a mining colony on the edge of Assembly space. The entire population, 40,000 individuals, was gone within hours. The colony was stripped of all resources and left as a dead husk. Assembly forces arrived 3 days later and found nothing alive. The second attack hit a week later. Then a third. Then attacks came every few days, each one devastating another world. The Assembly sent military forces to investigate. 5 ships jumped into the system, where the latest attack had occurred. They found a Skretch fleet waiting for them. Only 1 Assembly ship escaped to report what they had seen. Thousands of ships, the surviving captain told the Assembly Council. They have grown their numbers. They are more organized than before, and they are coming toward the core systems. Panic spread through the Assembly chamber. Species that had been arguing about border disputes suddenly forgot their petty conflicts. The Skretch did not care about politics or negotiations. They only destroyed. The Velthara chair tried to organize a defense. "We must pool our military resources. Every species must contribute ships." But the Assembly could not agree on command structure. They could not agree on strategy. They could not agree on which systems to defend first. While they debated, the Skretch conquered 4 more worlds. Ensign Hyejin sat at her communication station aboard a human listening post near the border. She monitored all transmissions from Assembly space. What she was hearing terrified her. "Captain, you need to hear this," she said, routing the audio to her commanding officer. Distress calls flooded the channels. Civilian ships fleeing the Skretch advance. Military forces calling for reinforcements that never came. Whole planets broadcasting final messages before going silent. "How many systems have fallen?" the captain asked. 4 confirmed destroyed, 3 more under attack right now, Hyejin reported. The Skretch are moving faster than anyone expected. The captain forwarded the intelligence to Fleet Command. Within hours it reached Admiral Suman on Earth. Suman studied the reports with growing concern. She had fought the Skretch before. She knew how dangerous they were. She pulled up the old military analysis from the First War. The Skretch were contained last time because humanity threw everything at them, she told her staff. We lost 12% of our fleet. We lost 160,000 personnel. We pushed them back at enormous cost. And we did it because the assembly backed us up with supplies and support. Will they ask for our help? Her aide asked. They already have, Suman said, pulling up a message that had just arrived. The message was from the Velthara chair. It was desperate and pleading. The assembly was requesting human military assistance against the Skretch threat. They offered favorable trade terms, territory concessions, anything humanity wanted. Suman forwarded the message to the civilian government. She did not have authority to make that decision. The human parliament debated for 2 days. Elder Wanshik led the opposition to intervention. Why should we risk our people for the species that betrayed us? He demanded. They forced us to abandon our colonies. They ignored our service. They took us for granted. Now they face consequences and want us to save them again. I say no. Counselor Tajan argued the opposite. This is not about the assembly. This is about billions of innocent lives. Civilians who had no say in the Talon Nebula vote. Children. Families. Are we going to let them die for political revenge? It is not revenge, Wanshik countered. It is reality. We cannot protect the entire galaxy. We must protect ourselves first. The vote was close, but the isolationists won. Humanity would not send military forces to help the assembly. Admiral Suman was ordered to prepare defensive positions along human borders. If the Skretch came toward human space, humanity would fight. But they would not go to the assembly's aid. The decision was communicated to the assembly. The response was immediate and furious. The humans are cowards, Magistrate Kix declared in the assembly chamber. They abandoned the galaxy in its hour of need. The humans are being rational, Prextar shot back. We took their colonies. We dismissed their service. We treated them as servants rather than partners. Now we expect them to save us? We have no right to demand anything from them. While the assembly argued, the Skretch continued their advance. They hit 6 more systems in 2 weeks. The assembly managed to slow them down but could not stop them. Then the Skretch changed direction. They headed toward the Velthara homeworld. The Velthara chair sent a personal message to Ambassador Yoon. This time there were no offers or negotiations. Just a simple plea, please. My people are going to die. Billions of them. I know we wronged you. I know we have no right to ask. But please help us. Yoon listened to the message 3 times. He was a diplomat. He had spent his life building bridges and making peace. Every instinct told him to help. But he also remembered 3 million humans forced from their homes. He remembered 40 years of service treated as nothing. He contacted the chair directly via secure channel. The Velthara leader appeared on screen looking exhausted and afraid. Ambassador Yoon, thank you for responding. Will humanity help us? Yoon took a breath. What he was about to say would be remembered for generations. When you voted to take the Talon Nebula colonies, you did not give us time to argue or negotiate. You simply voted and expected us to comply. You forced 3 million of my people from their homes for galactic stability. You told us sacrifice was necessary. I know, the chair said quietly. It was wrong. I admit it was wrong. Now you understand what sacrifice means, Yoon said. His voice was not angry. It was sad. You understand what it feels like to be the one asked to give everything. You understand what it means when others will not help you in your time of need. So you will not help us? The chair asked. You will let billions die? I did not say that, Yoon replied. I said you now understand. Whether humanity helps or not is not my decision alone. Our government is debating it. But I will tell you this. If we had remained in the assembly, if you had treated us with respect, if you had valued our service, we would already be fighting by your side. You would not need to beg. We would already be there. Because that is what partners do. And now? Now you must wait while we decide if we want to be your partner again. Just as we waited while you decided to take our colonies. Yoon ended the transmission. The Skretch reached the outer defenses of the Velthara system 3 days later. The battle was fierce. The Velthara fought desperately, throwing every ship they had at the invaders. Other assembly species sent what forces they could spare. It was not enough. The Skretch overwhelmed the defenses and entered the home system. 2 billion Velthara lived on the homeworld. They had nowhere to evacuate. On Earth, Dr. Hana was reviewing the military analysis when she noticed something. She pulled up records from the first Scratch War and compared them to current intelligence. The Scratch are following the same pattern as last time, she told Admiral Suman. They advance rapidly, overwhelm local defenses, then consolidate before the next push. They are overextending themselves. How long until they overextend this time? Suman asked. Hana ran the calculations. 18 months. Maybe 20. They will exhaust their logistics and have to pause. If the assembly can hold out that long, the Scratch advance will stall. Suman studied the data. Hana was right. The Scratch were following the same strategic pattern. They would burn themselves out eventually. But how many will die in 18 months? Suman asked quietly. Billions, Hana admitted. Captain Dae-hyun received reconnaissance reports from human intelligence ships. They had been monitoring the Scratch advance from a safe distance. The reports confirmed what Hana had calculated. The Scratch would exhaust themselves, but not before conquering dozens of systems. He forwarded the reports to Parliament with a recommendation. Wait. Let the Scratch and the Assembly bleed each other. Humanity could survive without intervention. Councillor Taejin fought against that recommendation. This is not who we are, he argued in Parliament. Humanity has always helped those in need. We are better than this, are we? Elder Wonshik asked. Or have we finally learned to put ourselves first? The debate continued as the galaxy burned. 2 years after humanity left the assembly, the galaxy looked very different. The Scratch offensive had finally stalled, exactly as Dr. Hana predicted. They had conquered 12 assembly systems before their supply lines collapsed, and internal conflicts forced them to consolidate their gains. The cost had been devastating. 9 billion lives lost, hundreds of worlds damaged or destroyed. The assembly was broken. The Velthara homeworld survived, but only barely. The battle for their system lasted 3 weeks and cost millions of lives. The Velthara chair resigned in disgrace, replaced by a coalition leadership that included representatives from 6 species. In those 2 years, humanity had not been idle. The warp gate network was complete. 23 gates connected human space with 31 independent systems. Travel that once took weeks now took seconds. Trade flourished. The human economy grew by 40% in 18 months. 6 former assembly species formally withdrew and petitioned to join the human-led coalition. These were smaller species who had watched the assembly fail to protect them during the Scratch crisis. They wanted to be part of something more reliable. Humanity accepted 3 of them after careful evaluation. The other 3 were told they needed to demonstrate commitment to mutual defense and democratic values first. Humanity was not taking members just to expand. They were building something different. Ambassador Yoon, now considered an elder statesman, sat in his office reviewing the applications. Each species was interviewed extensively. Each one had to prove they understood what partnership meant. We are not building another assembly, Yoon explained to one applicant species. We are building a true coalition. That means when one member is threatened, all members respond. It means equal votes and unanimous consent on major decisions. It means you cannot vote to sacrifice another member for your benefit. If you cannot commit to that, we cannot accept you. The species that joined understood this. They had seen what happened when a coalition became a debate club where the strong exploited the weak. They wanted something better. The Wrath Collective was in trouble. They had overextended trying to hold their conquered territories. The Helene, who they had attacked so easily, were now fighting a guerrilla war that drained Wrath resources. Internal dissent was growing. Their economy was failing. Magistrate Kix, no longer as confident as before, sent a private message to human authorities. He requested a meeting to discuss a non-aggression pact. Captain Dae-hyun, now a senior coordinator for human external relations, agreed to meet. They met on a neutral station, just the 2 of them in a small conference room. Humanity has grown powerful, Kix said carefully. We wish to ensure peace between our peoples. You wish to ensure we do not help the Hylene destroy you? Dae-hyun replied bluntly. Kix's scales rippled with discomfort. The Hylene situation is complicated. It is very simple, Dae-hyun said. You attacked them. You conquered their worlds. Now they fight back. That is not complicated. That is consequences. What do you want? Kix asked, abandoning pretense. Full reparations to every human who was displaced from the Talon Nebula. complete disarmament of your border forces facing human space, withdrawal from Helene territory, and a formal apology from your government acknowledging that the territorial claims were unjust. That is everything, Kix protested. Yes, Daehyun agreed. You took everything from 3 million humans. Now you will give everything to have peace with us. Refuse and we will support the Helene with weapons, training, and intelligence. They will bleed you dry over the next decade. Kix stared at him. You have changed. Humans used to be reasonable. We are being reasonable, Daehyun said. Reasonable means fair exchange. You took from us. Now you pay it back. That is reasonable. What you wanted was for us to be pushovers. Those days are gone. The Wrath government agreed to the terms 3 weeks later. They had no choice. The Galactic Assembly, reduced to 37 member species, sent a formal delegation to human space requesting renewed dialogue. It took 4 months to arrange. Humanity was not eager to talk. The delegation arrived at a human diplomatic station in neutral territory. Ambassador Yoon agreed to meet them, but he made clear this was not a negotiation for humanity to rejoin the assembly. This was humanity listening to what the assembly had to say. The new assembly leadership included the Krill observer, who had been elected to a coordination position. The elderly scholar looked at Yoon with tired eyes. We learned many painful lessons, the Krill said. We learned that peace requires sacrifice from everyone, not just the willing. We learned that taking someone for granted destroys trust. We learned that security does not happen automatically. It requires commitment and cost. You learned all this at a cost of 9 billion lives, Yoon replied quietly. Yes, the Krill admitted. We learned the hard way. Now we want to build something better. We want humanity to be part of it. The assembly presented new charter proposals. Equal partnership. Unanimous consent required for any action affecting member species. Mandatory mutual defense obligations. Every species contributing proportionally to joint operations. No more special privileges for founding members. Yoon reviewed the proposals carefully. They were good. They addressed most of the problems that had caused humanity to leave. But words on paper meant nothing if the culture did not change. Why should humanity trust this? Yoon asked. The Krill did not have a good answer. Because we hope you will give us a chance to prove we have changed. Yoon told them he would present the proposals to the human government. He made no promises. That same month, Lieutenant Minho, now a captain commanding his own ship, received a distress signal. A Krill civilian transport was under attack by pirates in unclaimed space. The transport had no weapons and was carrying 500 passengers. Minho looked at his crew. We have no treaty obligations. That ship is not in our territory. We do not have to respond. His tactical officer, a woman named Saori, said quietly, but we could respond. Minho thought about the last 2 years. He thought about humanity's principles. He thought about why they had left the assembly in the first place. It was not because they wanted to stop helping people. It was because they wanted to be respected for the help they gave. Change course, Minho ordered. Maximum speed. Prepare weapons. The HSS Indomitable arrived at the distress location within 30 minutes. 3 pirate ships were stripping the transport's cargo, while the passengers cowered inside. Minho's ship was a heavy cruiser designed for combat. The pirates were flying converted freighters. This is Captain Minho of the human defense ship Indomitable. Break off your attack immediately or we will fire. The pirates scattered. They knew better than to fight a human warship. Minho's crew escorted the transport to safety at the nearest Krill station. The Krill captain thanked them profusely. Why did you help us? Humans and Krill have no formal alliance. We helped because it was right, Minho said simply. That is reason enough. Word of the rescue spread quickly. It reminded the galaxy of something important. Humanity had not changed who they were. They had only changed who they would sacrifice for. On Earth, the human parliament debated the assembly's new charter proposals for 3 months. The debate was intense. Elder Wanshik still argued against any involvement with galactic politics. Councillor Tajin argued for cautious re-engagement. In the end, a compromise was reached. Humanity would not rejoin the old assembly. Instead, a new organization would be formed, the Galactic Concord. It would include reformed assembly species that accepted the new charter, plus the independent systems that had joined humanity, plus humanity itself. 23 former assembly species agreed to join. 31 independent systems joined. 5 species chose to remain independent. The rest collapsed or were absorbed by neighbors during the chaos of the Scretch War. The new Galactic Concord held its founding session on Concordia Prime, the same station where humanity had walked out 2 years earlier. This time the hall was arranged differently. No high chair, no privileged positions. Every species sat in a circle equal. Ambassador Yoon attended as the human representative. He was 80 years old now, and this would be his last major diplomatic mission. He stood to address the gathering. His voice was calm and measured. 2 years ago, humanity left this place because we were treated as expendable. We were expected to sacrifice while others did not. We were expected to serve without appreciation. We were expected to compromise while others did not. That was not partnership. That was exploitation. The chamber was silent. Every representative listened. Humanity learned that we can stand alone. We learned that we do not need the galaxy's permission to thrive. We learned that walking away is sometimes the only way to teach respect. But we also learned something else. We learned that isolation is not our goal. Partnership is our goal. Real partnership. Equal partnership. Yoon looked around the chamber. This new Concord is built on that principle. No species is more important than another. No species can vote to sacrifice another species for convenience. We succeed together or we fail together. If you can commit to that, humanity will stand with you. If you cannot, we will walk away again. There was no applause. Applause was not appropriate. Instead, the representatives of 54 species stood in respectful silence. Understanding had replaced presumption.